All right, we got some hope here. Nvidia, which I was looking is pretty strong earlier, did turn positive, trying to lead a bit of a bounce back after we fumbled the open. Tony Zhang joins us, chief strategist at Options Play. Got a trade on Nvidia, Tony. Also kind of want to get your take on the market here as we've got a little bit of hope the last day and a half, some stability, some two-way trade emerging. What role might Nvidia play in a comeback?
Yeah, I definitely think that right now, I think investors are looking for quality. Investors are looking for, any stocks where value is potentially at play here. And Nvidia is certainly, is at the intersection of actually both of them. Not something you really think of Nvidia for. But, given the current market conditions that we're in right now, just look at the outlook here for consumer discretionary. It's been incredibly poor. And I think you have to look towards names like Nvidia to potentially provide a bit of leadership for a bit of a bounce here. I think ultimately the S&P 500, we're watching the 5,700 level on the S&P 500 pretty closely. We really need to see the bulls get back above 5,700 in order to confirm that this is just a correction that we're currently in and not something much larger. There's still at the moment some substantial amount of downside risks if any bounces from here can't clear that 5,700 level on the S&P 500. And if it can't, we definitely will have to rethink kind of long-term or just bullish views in equities overall.
Okay, so the implication there being that further breakdown from here might be something a bit more structural, whereas we can still just kind of assume until otherwise proven that this is correction as markets must do.
Yeah, exactly. A 9% decline in the S&P 500 is still very much in kind of a correction territory, and very much we could see a bounce and move forward. Economic data overall has not been particularly weak other than consumer spending right now. That is probably the biggest concern, is just how fast consumers are starting to pull back here on spending. And that is obviously a primary driver of the US economy. Now, largely Nvidia is immune from that to some degree. We continue to see from the hyperscalers and kind of the commitments across the board for building out AI data centers here in the US remain incredibly resilient, and also globally as well. And that's part of what drives, in my opinion, one of the best value stories here for Nvidia in this current market.
Okay. So Nvidia, tell me where you want to go. Tell me what you see, and how long do you want to be in this trade right now?
I think overall, for a lot of stocks, you tend to want to be in and out fairly quickly and be fairly nimble here. The stock has largely been range bound here between 105 and that 150 level here to the upside for the past 6-7 months. We just bounced off that 105 level here a couple of days ago, and that's really kind of what I'm looking for, is a bounce, back towards perhaps the high 140s here to the upside. So much more of a range bound play, at least initially, but this is really kind of taking the initial steps of potentially picking a bottom here on Nvidia. And, that really comes down to valuations from my perspective. You have a stock that's now trading at 25 times forward earnings, which is certainly a premium to the industry. But if you look at kind of growth expectations, there are almost no stocks that are expecting top and bottom line growth that's north of 30% with net margins that are north of 55%, yet trades at 25 times forward earnings. Compare that to an Apple that's growing, single digits in terms of top and bottom line, and net margins that are half as much, that are trading at 33 times forward earnings. So, you really have to take that into account. So I'm very much, on the bearish side with Apple, and very much on the bullish side here for Nvidia, given kind of where we are right now.
I like that. So when you say bearish Apple, bullish Nvidia, do you think these are trades one can hold simultaneously as kind of a pairs almost for trying to trade dispersion within mags?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing here right now, and selling premium on both sides. Especially with VIX kind of in that 95th, 99th percentile over the past year, it certainly favors option selling. And that's exactly how we're taking kind of a pairs approach here to, long Nvidia, short Apple out of the Mag 7.
Okay. All right, so you're selling the April 11th 110 put. So you do want to be on the side of a premium with the volatility still elevated. That does seem to make sense. And I guess then obviously the risk, you've got a decent amount of time on this. I mean, we could even get a bounce and then come back and break through support levels. What do you do if that's the trajectory, Tony? If we do firm up and this trade looks really good, and then a week from now, closer to the expiry, or as time decays a bit, then it starts hurting. How do you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I think that from my perspective, this is a long-term play, right?
You just forget it. You just sell it, forget it.
Yeah, I'm exactly. I'm very comfortable because if this put option gets put to me, my net cost of buying it is around 105, which is that close to that 9 month low that we've seen here in Nvidia around that 105 level. I'm very comfortable buying the stock at around 23 times forward earnings, 24 times forward earnings for the long run. So that from my perspective, I feel comfortable with that. But for investors maybe who may not be as bullish as me on Nvidia, I think one of the things that you could do is also you could sell this 110 put and then maybe buy a lower put against that. You're going to collect a little bit less premium, but you are going to significantly reduce the overall risk of the trade and the margin requirement to get into the trade as well. So you can kind of take a very similar risk structure or a risk profile with significantly less risk. So that's one way that you could de-risk this if you are more concerned about just the overall market here right now, which I think is a valid concern.
All right, well, if you do like the trade, then you might want to act sooner than later because VIX is coming in and Nvidia's going up. We did add a couple bucks on there just in the last kind of 15 minutes for Nvidia trying to firm up. I like the pairs trade within mags, short Apple, long Nvidia, do it through collecting premium and credits. Thanks, Tony. Always a good walk.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thank you very much. Good stuff. Tony Zhang, Chief Strategist at Options Play.